So this year, we continue expanding our capacity to see the connections between disciplines, generations, and cultures, and breaking down our knowledge silo in order to work effectively together and solve problems. We are living in a hyper-specialization and post-truth era. Each one of us is deeply immersed in our own way of seeing things, asking questions, and answering them. And we understand that interdisciplinary approach is a key to achieving sustainability. We ask ourselves, how can we bridge those gaps? This year, we are implementing art-based, relationship-focused approach in order to cultivate open dialogues. Through this process, we are hopefully able to document the evolution of knowledge production, its contextual, participatory, and emergent nature. I'm personally excited for the unforeseen possibilities, not only for our team and the community, but also for my own personal growth.
The difficulty was being able to get that continuum thing. No, I was just looking for anything that would appear to make you look beyond the surface. Right. So to maybe look through, around, over, under, but particularly through.
Yeah. This is a collective story behind Greg's artwork. As a student of my class that explored art as a tool for social change, Greg chose a canvas unlike any other, a majestic 170-year-old beech tree. But the challenge wasn't just artistic. It was about creating a bridge between wonder and disruption. Could this living canvas spark curiosity and challenge the status quo? This curiosity led to a unique experiment. Art is a canvas of emotions. It's like a window into our souls. In conceptual art in particular, artists explore the possibilities of art as idea. It can be a deeply philosophical undertaking. How do you define beauty?
It's how you feel at the time, how you feel. How does something make you feel when you look at it? Oh, this is horrible to say, but at the display with Pussy Riot, the women from Russia, it was the most horrible, destructive, jaggy, staccato display of art that I've ever seen, and it made me feel disjointed and horrible. But it still was kind of beautiful in its way because, well, it made you feel something. So it's, I guess beauty is how you feel.
Contemporary art, as Greg himself expressed, is inherently critical, often employing speculative design to provoke thought. Did Greg intend to similarly jolt us awake with this unconventional canvas? What is the target of his critique?
I got one neighbor who lives exactly a block away who is vociferous that tree has for her taken on a demon-like quality. And from my point of view, from where she is, it doesn't in any way should affect her, but for her it's a symbol. And my neighbor next door, who's asked me a number of times, very not aggressive, passive, just cut the trees down. And she'll even help pay for it. For me, it's just being. It's just, you're just being. I don't know, you're being like a tree or something. It just flows. I'm really passionate about the way capitalism is working right now, in that it was the magic middle, the middle class, that really was the driving force of our society in North America, particularly in North America, and to some degree in Europe. So it is with that idea that I've taken the metaphor for that inequality is the view.
His artwork appears to be antithesis. Tree becomes more than a tree. Is it an object or a life force? Is it a commerce or poetry? Intrigued, I felt compelled to join the unfolding dialogue. But this is something that I will see example of radical empathy, incorporating that idea into a landscape. So you're doing a placemaking, which is rooted in your very unique cultural context, which connects not just the people, but the nature and maybe the economy or maybe the psyche of today's world.
Sometimes you cause people's minds to explode because you're sort of like at a 35,000 altitude idea, radical. And when you think about it, it just makes sense.
Yeah, but you're doing it very gently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since this is a portal means that for me, like I interpreted this is a window you can imagine.
Did you use the word portal?
Yeah, portal. Portal to go to the different dimensions. You can imagine anything. It's almost like you can see your own past passing through from the birth, going back to the human origin, or could be the universe, could be a elusive crowd of myths that people can really still can figure it out. So this is something that you create the space for imaginations.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. That tree specifically, there's poems about that tree. So it's a portal. It's a portal for communication. It's a portal for feeling. And in a way, it's a portal for wonderment.
Yeah.
Because I get that feeling when people drive by. It's for that. I don't know what they're thinking, but I'm hoping it's a good thought. Yeah. You could help me with my interpretation, but as soon as you said the word portal,
Yeah.
it'll be an interesting exercise for me. And do you want me to have witnesses?
Yes.
Okay, so
Thank you so
be up
much.
at my house.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Our conversation began building a bridge of understanding, opening a door to explore further.
Keiko, welcome to my property. So as part of this presentation that we're putting together, I've invited some neighbors who live nearby. I'd like to introduce you to Gordon Gunter. And Gordon has been an anti-activist about people who cut trees down. He kind of gets pissed off when people cut trees down, especially when the trees are not on their property, but rather on city's property. Another neighbor loves our tree, and she particularly loves it because each fall, when I rake the leaves, she uses the leaves for mulching her garden. Then you've got my darling wife who's put up with my ministrations over all these years for climbing in the tree and risking my life life and limb for doing the art on the tree.
Yeah, imagine coming home and seeing your husband, darling husband, balanced on the ladder, climbing into and then painting it. It's like, what are you doing?
I'm completely surrounded by trees in my yard. And I edit my trees kind of based on the power lines so that I don't have to see them. So my trees and other trees in the neighborhood act as there's so many different, we talk about the view, but there's habitats for the animals and the birds, oxygen, just that visual of
And
the cooling effect in the hot summer. I've had people, tradesmen and salesmen, during their lunch break, come and park here and have a nap under the tree, in the cool of the tree, in their cars, because it cools everything down.
And you get into this interesting, you've got dialogue happening with your two neighbors. I have the same situation happening. Let's just take one block, and if you polled, I think on an average there's 18 residents per block, I'm guaranteed that you would have more than half that would say, get rid of all of these trees. What does that say about us? It's an ongoing dialogue, and it's bloody obvious, but some people just don't get it. They just, you know, we're biased. We're biased.
Yeah.
We like trees.
Tree.
Yeah, we like trees. When we moved into our house, all we had was a gravel patch and sidewalk. So we thought, well, maybe I should try and pursue a beautification project in the street. So I found out that Burnaby offers this particular program. I had to get 50% approval from the 18 residents of that street to get this LASB put into place. And it's a lot of money. So we got a new sidewalk, we got a boulevard, which gave us a platform to put in trees, a curb, and a street. But it took me 2 tries over 2 years to get the 50%. And I had to fight like hell to get, and ironically, the vote that, or the signature that got the project approved was someone who didn't even live on the street. They owned the home, but they didn't live on the street. So they didn't care.
Right.
And frighteningly enough, I used the concept of, well, why don't we project ourselves 15, 20, 30 years down the road? I'm going to sell my house. And then you've got this whole street thing going on. And then it went through. But that's what it took. And I really tried not to bring in the financial aspect. I wanted to keep it sort of more au naturel.
Yeah.
And we're concerned about nature and trees and all that. Anyway, I'm done. Thank you.
Wow. Interesting.
This tree has such a soul, I have to
Yes.
say.
They do. They do.
They do.
I got caught hugging a tree the other day. And I felt stupid, but it's the oldest conifer in the neighborhood. This tree is massive.
Yeah.
And when I do this, I'm not even a third of the way around this tree. I was just walking one day, kind of feeling a little, and I
need
just
a
walked
tree
up to
hug.
that tree. I needed a tree hug. And there's this lady across the street, and she just kind of gave me the thumbs up.
You know, but the hugging thing, the witnessing someone.
But that's the same as here.
Yes,
This is a
exactly.
form of hugging. You know?
This is the expression of the love and care.
Yeah.
And if I see someone hugging trees, it makes me happy. And you know,
It
feel like
should make
we're
a lot
living,
of people happy.
Yeah, we live in a city, place where people care about souls and things. Like, even you're not directly communicating to the resident or passengers.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
good. Linda, I'd like you to meet an artist friend of mine, Keiko Honda.
Nice to meet you. I'm Linda.
Linda?
So, Linda, the object is the tree is a work of art.
Right.
To me, it's a work of art.
Right.
And I know that when you first and Sante moved in, you're building your house and you're putting the deck on top,
Yeah.
or the deck was on top.
It was on top.
And you have mentioned to me indirectly those trees and perhaps this tree. It would be appreciative of you if we topped them so you could maximize your view.
Oh, right. So when we moved here, we loved the view. Like the place was just absolutely wonderful, and we have the best neighbors that we can ever wish for sure, for one thing. And then when we started to go up top and we put a chair and stuff like that, we noticed that the view was just a little bit less when we were up there. So we said to our friendly neighbors, maybe it would be lovely if we could trim the tree just a little bit, just so we could see a little further the mountains, and Grouse Mountain and everything is such a wonderful place. But you know what? This tree is such a lovely tree. It looks like you could build a fort up there, and the kids could play. It's a great tree. So unfortunately that you're having problems with the tree.
So part of the art is that on the other side of the tree, there's a huge disease.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, and I've had arborists call and mention that they believe that tree will probably has a lifetime of 2 more years.
Oh.
And that the mitigation that I could use is threefold. I could chop it down completely, or leave it and possibly have insurance problems. And or the other issue is basically to what is called pole art it, which means that the volume of the tree would probably be eliminated by about 70%, which would mean that you would have maximum view from your roof. So
It's interesting that we had one tree whisperer come in recommended by the city,
by the city.
who drilled into the tree. He could find out exactly where it was corrupted, and it's basically a shell with the inside is definitely not healthy. And which was kind of awful, because when he came in, I was just, oh my God, I love this tree. And he looked up at me and says, I love this tree too.
But in a way that like in the human world, you are really paying attention to the end of life care,
Yeah.
and they maybe you will do.
No, not end of life care. That tree's got another 100 years.
Yeah, we will take care of it. You take care. But it's I like how you feel it to the core.
Yeah.
It's happening with trees is as if as a human.
Yeah, I guess people have children and people have pets.
People have
We've
trees.
got a tree.
Yes.
So I'd like to introduce you to another neighbor, the neighbor who lives in that White House, Alex.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Meet you. Sorry I'm a little late. I was dealing with my own drama. Yeah, no, it's really interesting, my story with the tree. So it's got a lot of leaves, as we all know. And so there was a lot of leaves in the yard. And then so I love gardening. You love gardening. We're both very into plants. And these are perfect leaves for mulch. They have a really dark color. So all of that deep color gets all rained on. And so it's really, everyone keeps asking what I do to my garden beds. And I say, I put these leaves on them. And so funny enough, it's very beneficial for me to have free mulch in my backyard. So there's just all these interconnections with this tree and with this story. And I also have one more. I think it's so funny because I love science fiction. I'm writing a science fiction. I've heard you love science fiction, right? I love science fiction. I love thinking about the universe and portals. And then I find out you hate science fiction, but you drew a portal on your tree, which is about science fiction. So there's all of these interesting connections across the story, and it's just such a great story. I love the art project. I love the interconnection it's brought. I think it's great. It's fantastic.
But this is a problem that the cities, that Burnaby and many cities have, is getting that message out. We've got cell phones, we've got computers, we've got newspapers. We walk around the neighborhood, we have meetings like this. We should all be so tuned in, but that's politics. It's really difficult to get everybody to pay attention.
I think the trees are important. However, I think you also need to keep them nice in a neighborhood. Like you got to keep them so that you keep everybody happy as well.
Yeah.
But I think we need the trees. You need the trees, but you also need to know that we're in the city. That's what I think.
Well, I like Linda's comment about we've got to have trees, but we've got to make sure that everyone's happy.
And thanks for Greg for bringing this type of, and thanks to you for bringing this situation forth. We should have more of these. Every block should have a.
And would that be nice? We can start communicating through art.
Keiko runs a salon, and the traditional French cafe kind of salon method.
It's about sharing a passion. There's already processes happening that reading minds.
So you'll have a bunch of people that we won't even know.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're invited.
I've had the fortune to go to Keiko's classes at Simon Fraser downtown. I went to the class with a high degree of trepidation and fear. And I even mentioned that at the introduction of the class because I'm a severe introvert, and to get in front of people causes me to have stomach churns. But for some reason, there's something about your personality that makes me unafraid. And I like that.
Nice. Oh, that's
Oh, thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Salon. This salon started about 14 years ago, living by the motto that we are all artists. Today's salon is about the intersection of art, civic engagement, and environment. I'd like to ask you to ponder these questions throughout tonight. So ask yourself, what's bothering you? Who could do something about it? What could you say or do to make change? How could you make us care too? And I'm incredibly honored and delighted to welcome artist Greg Yaholinsky, whose artwork exactly that. While we are eager to hear your insight, I'm hoping to see some sort of a synergistic effect where his artwork spark lively conversations and all of our contributions enrich the experience. So I will invite you to Mascuba Museum of Modern Art, which is the virtual museum, which we made it up. So just pretend that you are in virtual reality. Let's go through the room. What did you see?
Well, I see the tree has been painted with circular structure.
Initially, I saw the classic tire hanging from a tree. It's almost like there's like a lemur or something or hugging the branch.
Circular image, and then the stripes, and then it kind of looks like a bear. There's an eye. It's almost like a narrative of how the tree is coming alive. It's all this telescope.
Above the ring, I see a face of a rabbit by the branches. So that's the first thing that came to my mind. A rabbit on the top. Okay, nice. The ring itself is the idea of seeing through, like a window. You see through it. And the third one was those black and white lines. It brought to me an idea of Tibet, the ribbons that they attach to trees to remind of something. And I thought maybe those are ribbons that connects us to a memory of the past.
When I see something, I go back. So it reminded me of trees that we'd seen in Mexico.
Yeah, like I looked above the tire and saw the face and the, I don't know, for me, I'm like, oh, the leaves are like the hair and then the legs look like, so yeah, and then I just thought of the tire as just kind of the tummy part.
Well, I see the circles and then I see that face, and above that, like in between the two branches, it almost seems like there's a little owl there in between the trees with the two eyes.
Seeing the two eyes, to me, that one looks actually like on the prow of a ship, and those are the breasts. The head goes up, and there's more of those marks all the way around that tree. It's a tree with a lot of soul.
I bicycle by that tree every day. That you've got 3-dimension on multi-dimension. That's what I see all the time.
So now I would like to ask everyone, what do you wonder?
First of all, there's a tree, and also I'm looking at the slope, the vulnerability of the tree, that someday it's gonna collapse or something.
As a teacher, I guess I'm thinking, oh, that'd be a cool like starter for a writing piece and see what each student sees and make a story from it. Yeah.
Well, when I'm looking at it again, I think it's much loved. Like you could just see it. It's very graceful.
My wonder was that what was the intention of the person actually painted that? What was happening in his mind or her mind when they draw that?
Well, the artwork was actually sort of done concurrent with me meeting you at the Simon Fraser campus, and you asked me at the time what would I do if I was wanting to make society better, and I showed you a diagram of, I call it economic inequality, and I wanted to take that graph and flatten it so that maybe there would be a bump in the middle, so the magic middle could participate in worldly things. And someone asked me, well, then how are you going to do that? And I said, well, the way to do it is kind of to piss off people who have lots of money. And a metaphor for that became my tree, because what you don't see with that tree is that the view of the city harbor is blocked by that tree by many people that live in my community. And so I just decided to bring attention to the fact that it is something that's blocking your view. I wanted to create a way of people imagine going through the view, to see through the leaves, to see through the trunk, to see through the dirt, to see what's beyond the view. You don't have to look at the view and feel the view because you got a tree blocking it. And I sort of went on to the negative side in terms of finding something opposite to what people who are economically advantaged always like to have a view. They always like to have a perch. And I got incensed when I saw some people who are bastion citizens in our community who have cut down trees, both on their own property and on city property, cut down trees for the sake of their view. A view for some people represents a feeling of power. It represents a feeling of well-being.
Economic disparity is a really serious one. And as you can see, it shows the grim realities since early 1980s. Imagine that this stark difference between this income gap has impact so many parts of our lives, not only where we get to live and work, but also our ability to shape the public policies and urban planning and so forth.
Part of it is a thing that really struck me was the information that came out after the heat dome. The conversation came up about how much canopy was in areas where the median income was higher than low, just generally speaking. But where poorer people live, less trees, bottom line. And I think this slide obviously shows the disparity.
I definitely feel like environment can be impacted by humans as well, because humans are also part of this ecosystem. And the land planning and the urban planning of Vancouver has been the past 100 years, and kind of the environment, the topography, the soil conditions have been laid out since 100 years ago. And that's under the influence of colonialism, with also the segregation and also community differences as well. So that's the legacy of that kind of a planning has been impacted, and since then and until now, it's like has been there the whole time. So that's impacting the kind of distribution as well.
The other thing is that I recall my childhood, my hometown, that we had lots of, as you call it, the square, and the middle of the square were lots of trees and normally a pond and the fountains, and that was the way it was in, let's say, 60s, 70s. But lots has changed. We cannot afford that anymore. And although what we are talking about, cutting trees and losing green space, is a side effect of something else, a side effect of increasing population, a side effect of investment in high rises for making money, not for city building. It's a money-making machine for them. So not considering those other reasons, it's just an emotional view of tree is lost. Yes, tree is lost, but lots of other things has been lost. Humanity is lost. Focus on money, principles are lost. Lots of other things during these years since 1962 now, I guess, is lost. Trees are the representation of the problem. But I'm just saying it's not just that. We have to consider all of these changes that has happened.
And you talked about community. Community is getting along with your neighbor. But community is also about getting along with your neighborhood, not just your neighbor. Very few people understand that. But nobody gets together and says, look, let's go on, let's talk about this, let's resolve it. It doesn't happen anymore.
Was it Little Richard said, you have to always give up something that you have, that you really love, to get something that you want. And you have to always give up what you have to get what you want. And I just want to just have more of what I have. And that's really, if I go through that portal, I just want to be more Jeej, or my nickname is Jeej. I just want to be more Jeej. And that's it. So now the post-capitalists are talking about a realization that we are ourselves nature. We're just a germ, we're a molecule. So if I went through the portal, I'd just continue to be more nature.
It's beautiful.
Donna Hathaway, have we read her stuff? Anthropologist talks about that.
Yeah.
It's like the almost post-human in a way, because we have to do this kind of like nature, all these wonderful possibilities that nature is teaching us.
When we bought the house, like 45 years ago almost, that tree was just such a part of that property.
And we actually have a photograph from 1920 where that tree had just been planted. It was a sapling. So then you look at this tree that has this huge history, and my heart is breaking because I know that it's rotting from the inside out. And I keep thinking it's not. I think someone's lying to me, and somehow if I went through the portal, I'd be able to check it out, which would be great. Because every year it leafs out, and it just affords me so much visual imagery. It looks, at times it looks like dragons, you know, the way the tree moves. And it's just, I don't know, that soul is evident.
But it's like, maybe give that thought, you know, maybe there is a spirit there.
Yeah. All our relations.
Like an old person, you know, we don't kill an old person when someone gets older. I mean, that's a spirit, right? So we can elegantly, or in like a ritual or something, like honor this tree. It's getting old, buddy, you're getting old. Okay, we're going to take care of you. So it's like these scaffolds or something to...
a 300 square foot treehouse.
I think up inside there.
Yeah, right inside the tree, and you can rent it out. And you've solved part of the housing situation. I'm serious.
Well, in forestry, tree management is like you will keep the dead tree in the urban areas, because in forestry we call them the wildlife trees. Why we call them the wildlife trees? Because those stems are actually habitats for animals that are actually living in the areas or in the habitat, and they require those kind of dead trees, the branches, to live in or to feed on. So those are quite important and in ecosystem originally. And then right now in the urban areas, the conventional way of keeping them is like we have to clean it up. That tree is not good for aesthetics. But then that's actually, we're destroying the habitats for those animals. So something we can do with this tree is just maybe we can, if the tree dies in like 2 years or 3 years, maybe we can keep some part of it as like a habitat for the animals, and then maybe to make some kind of a signage to show what the intention is, and just to kind of do like an educational piece.
The plus of Burnaby is a new administration. It's all about time. It's flushing out the old ideas, flushing out the old blood, and bringing in young people who have new and interesting ideas. And I'm very proud of the fact that they're opening up to new ideas.
Everybody in your neighborhood, maybe not them, but everybody can carve their name into it.
Yeah.
Around the trunk.
As a matter of fact, that the Copper Beech has got a reputation of being the perfect tree to put your heart on and tell your wife you love her with the arrow through it. So it's perfect for that.
Because it's kind of creates the sense of like identity, community.
And community. Community, yeah.
Thinking about Greg's work reminded me of Emily Carr's word. When you paint a landscape, your feelings are not on the canvas. They are one with the earth. It made me question our modern disconnect. We've traded wonder for worry. Like Greg advocates, we need to rediscover our inner child, our Gij.
There's little children, I've really noticed it with COVID. And people at first, because they're like, I don't want my kids to be out without an adult present and so on. And then they finally gave up because mom is working and dad is working. And suddenly it was like I was transported to the 1960s or something. And the children were in the park and building forts and doing all these great things. The fairy fort.
That is made by children?
It was a bunch of little girls. and then they had like bows and arrows and stuff. They became like little forest people.
Yes, so like a theatrical little bit.
A little bit, yeah. So it was wonderful. And then the parks people came and tore it down because they were saying, some homeless people could come and live there. So then I contacted them. I heard it when the girls were crying. It was terrible. It was so sad. And so then I contacted them and said, what? And then it resolved itself. They came, there was an apology to the kids, and then the kids were given permission, and then they built it again. And so as far as the community goes, we don't really do anything per se to support that, but everybody enjoys it. Everybody enjoys that the kids are able to play.
We don't shut down, we just nurture it.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. As Linda eloquently expressed, children are natural artists. Their creativity often blossoms through uninhibited play. This freedom and innate ability, once a cornerstone of childhood, are gradually eroding. As we race towards the future, we find ourselves grappling with a profound question. How can we find a balance between progress and our essential humanity?
When we started it, I was having a hard time with it. And Reza and I were both looking at each other, and I was joking with her, and I was like, this one feels primitive. And as I was playing with it and talking, and like Claudia was saying, it's a moment to calm down, felt like you could be a child for a second. So kind of is a representation of the child within someone, but it also is how older generations can help younger generations. But it wasn't about the art itself. It wasn't about how pretty it was. It was about the experience and what went through. So also we see the ribbon. It's always with you, that friend that takes you along with life. And it was so pleasant to be able to speak to Claudia and Allison because they got to speak to Reza and us about their experiences in life. And it's comforting because we're like, okay, well, if they got it in life, we can get it in life. So it's kind of that thread keeps carrying on. But yeah.
Contemporary practice requires audience to do some of the work of creative interpretation, to become, in a sense, co-creators.
Keiko, may I present you with something, a creation that was done by my wife that I think represents something about you that makes me feel good.
Wow. I'm honored to receive. Thank you so much. May I open it?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Oh, beautiful. You painted it? Did you make it?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's got shoes.
Oh,